Hey Biro, thanks for joining me. Maybe you want to take a second to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my full name is Florin Biro. So my actual name is Florin, and this is a secret that not a lot of people know, but I introduce myself as Biro. So I'm Biro. I'm the co-founder of Jexo, which just recently got acquired by Appfire, and today I work at Appfire as content director, influencer, advocate, whatever fancy titles you want to give me.
Yeah, when I asked you to introduce yourself, I realized probably more people know you than they know me. No, I mean, you've been a real rising star to the ecosystem. So maybe when did you actually start in the Atlassian ecosystem?
That was in 2018, actually. So, compared to the age of the ecosystem, I think I'm a baby in a sense. I started in 2018, and the reason why I started was because, or frankly, I wanted to work on some cool projects. I wanted to build a SaaS business, and primarily to work on cool projects with cool people. That was it. But I've always had this. I've been an entrepreneur. I've always tried to build businesses, SaaS businesses. Always failed. I think Jexo is the first and only successful business that I have, so that's my claim to fame. But yeah, I've started because my partner and I wanted to work with each other and build some cool products. And at that point, we were using Jira, and we really needed a release management and orchestration tool. And everything that I looked at didn't really fit the bill. So we started sketching it, building it. And as soon as we started sketching, we were like, well, this could actually be useful for others that use. And I was already aware of the marketplace, the app plugging system and so on. I was using apps in Jira for Jira and Confluence, I think 2 years prior. So somewhere 2016, I was already using Jira and the ecosystem. But I became a developer and a partner in 2018.
It's actually interesting in the way you say it, because obviously a lot of the people I got to talk to recently have been around like we did 10 years, 12 years, yes. 15 years. So when we started, whatever idea you had, there was maybe a second avenue in the marketplace, but certainly not 5, 10, 15 like it is today. What actually gave you the confidence, or what may give you the conviction this is a business you want to build in a probably already relatively crowded marketplace?
You know what? 2018, when we came up with the idea, and which became Swanly, our flagship app, and we started building a release orchestration tool, there weren't that many apps of that sort. There was
on cloud though.
On cloud,
yeah,
yes,
that's
exactly.
Actually a good point.
So you had Portfolio for Jira. It was still Portfolio for Jira. I think it was. I don't want to say anything off, but I think it was acquired and implemented as basically advanced roadmaps way later, after we got into. But when I was trying tools, I've tried standalone solutions, and I've tried Portfolio for Jira, and I felt that it was a bit too complex for our need. And roadmap solutions at that point, still, you had a couple. 2018, 2019, roadmap planning wasn't that big of a market, and I think that's why I got into it, because I was looking at the solutions that didn't have the type of views and workflows that we were looking for. It's like, okay, this is a lack in the market, so I'm going to build it. Probably if I would have started 2 years later, I would have probably thought twice whether I should enter the market or not.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So it was still pretty early, but yes, it was a bit more evolved and such. And what triggered the decision, because at the beginning we were playing, right? So, let's sketch something, let's build something internally for us. And what really made us realize we should do this as full-time was, I would say, the community. Initially we were thinking, well, I think this is going to be useful for other users, but I think the catalyst of us going all in the ecosystem was the community. And seeing the fact that there's tools, there's information, there's a bunch of wonderful people in the community that share and help. I've joined early on the Slack, the Marketplace Clarity Slack, and seeing all the discussions on Slack and on forum really kind of gave me the confidence. Oh, this is a really developed community like you would have of let's say Salesforce or something like that. I'm entering this place. I know that I have the safety net of a community to bounce ideas and help me if I get stuck with stuff. And I'm not just knocking at a company's door, which is the marketplace door, and waiting for months to get unblocked. Yeah.
But what I also found interesting, seeing you entering the community at that time, is most of us met a lot of people and built a network on those kind of conferences. But this is your first team, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have been. So you've done that all via Slack, etc., via the community website, etc. So you've really entered it in a more social, more modern way.
Well, and I think at one point we were also forced. So 2018, we were just building our first product. We didn't have a launch product. We launched the Swanly at the end of 2018. 2019, full-time employees. I think we only attended one single event in 2019, which was the App Week, where we met, basically, in Berlin. That was the only event. We were still, we have full-time jobs. We're not invested in this. Oh, let's go to this event because it seems cool. Maybe we can hack stuff around. And then we were kind of forced when we started taking this seriously and looking at it as a business. We were forced to do everything digitally because of the pandemic. So, we partner up and got investment and support from you in very early 2020, just when the pandemic was hit us, and then afterwards it was all digital. But we were also fine with that, and I think we were quite used to it. You mentioned about building the team and so on. At the previous company, I was working with a lot of remote engineers and team members, especially in Brazil, overseas. So I've done that for 5 years before. So I was kind of used to that approach of working with a team and also networking online, social media, and so on. So it was normal, but I think it was also exaggerated by the whole pandemic situation.
Just mentioned your previous job with Mudano, and I know you liked your job there. So how hard was it for you to make the decision to quit your job there and go all in with essentially Swanly and the other ideas you brought to market afterwards?
I think I can't say that it was extremely difficult for me to leave my job. I think after a certain amount of years with a team, at least for me, I felt that there was a certain level of maturity and I could exit and go and do something else. I've always enjoyed helping teams grow in the early stage, and that's what I've done with the other company, Mudano. I was one of their first employees in 2015. I was there from the beginning. We built a company of over 150 people. And at that point, when I was ready to move on, I think the company was in a really good place. Also, the company got acquired by Accenture right in the same time that I was preparing myself to exit the company. So that was kind of like I would say a lucky coincidence in a sense. But again, and I've done this prior, and even with Jexo, I would say, I've really enjoyed the journey of building something and consolidate a company and have a robust base. And there's a time where I feel that I'm less needed, and that makes me feel successful. And that's when basically also we got acquired in a really good space. So I think that's a bit my pattern, and it's probably going to continue over the years and so on. That's why I'm also helping startups nowadays with advice and so on. I like this first phase of growing something from nothing. I don't know, it gives me extreme satisfaction in a sense.
I fully understand that, can totally relate. In terms of along the way in Jexo, you actually brought out some other products as well, Foxtrade, for example.
Yeah.
In terms of, can you give me a bit the rationale what you were thinking? It's, I mean, other marketplace vendors go all in with just idea one app, make it bigger.
Yeah.
We also have a series of apps. Ultimately, what was your thought behind the decisions to go and expand into multiple apps?
You know, that's interesting because Nikki and I had a conversation probably in beginning of 2019 or mid 2019. It was around the time where the Berlin App Week happened, maybe a couple of months earlier, where we were thinking, look, we now understand a bit more about this ecosystem. We know that there's a lot of progress from other marketplace partners. There's a lot of progress from Atlassian themselves in building things. Do we want to double down and just build the best product ever, or do we want to potentially expand and divide our functionality in multiple products, multiple apps, and so on? And I think we both agreed that it was better to do the second option, mainly because of the desire to not put all of our eggs in one basket, in a sense. Yeah. Because again, we were seeing certain apps or certain actions from Atlassian, which would indicate, well, if we double down in building this app, yeah, we could build the best app and compete with other apps as well as Atlassian themselves. But in the same time, it did feel a bit more of a risky path for me. So, and Nikki as well. So we decided, let's just diversify and create a portfolio of work management apps, all of them useful in their own sense. And at least that kind of decreases the risk of having, you know, the exact same product being launched by 10 other companies and also Atlassian themselves. That was the rationale behind it.
So if you now look back, obviously Jexo was an incredible success. You also mentioned you failed a couple of times at the beginning. Would you do it all again? Would you do many things differently? Are there anything that sticks out where you say,
oh,
not
yeah,
going to do that again?
There's definitely a lot of things that I could 100% do better next time around. You learn a lot. We've also had, you know, from the outside, everything's been working brilliantly, but it hasn't always been like that. We had a lot of hiccups along the way. Yes, we managed to build the company and grow it to a successful point, but the wrong road bumps along the way have been.
I'm always amazed if you look at the success story. Backwards, it looks like a straight line.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
All great vision and well planned, but when you walk that path, it never feels that way.
I'll tell you one of the biggest challenges because we were talking about the decision of going with multiple apps versus one consolidated app. Well, one of the biggest challenge has been us having the resources to sell multiple apps, because it's not easy, especially when you kind of like take an approach like we did. Like our Atlassian partner ecosystem is known for selling through channel, selling through a lot of ways where when you go traditional SaaS product led, it's a completely different type of approach. So we took that approach, and then we quickly realized, but hold on, because this approach, just doing this for one app requires a ton of energy and resources. Are we going to do this for every single app? And what does that mean? Well, we're small. We don't have the resources to apply the same strategies, product-led strategies and marketing strategies as, you know, we applied, let's say, with our flagship, which was Swanly. So we focused on 2 apps. And again, it's still, I would say, a challenge that I've not figured out. I'm still scratching my head about that. You need to you need to have a lot of resources in order to have multiple apps and be able to effectively build them up without the traditional, I would say, without the traditional channel, which is sales people and I would say channel partners and so on. Yeah, so that was a big challenge, and it continues to be. Would I do it differently? Would I go and build one single app, consolidated app? I don't know. Still not sure. I might still take the same path with this one.
Yeah, the thing that always amazed me the most is actually that I feel Jexo always punched above their weight line in terms of looking much bigger and much more professional than when it still was a small team, if you look behind the mirrors. And I also always felt to me that a good part of the success you had was by all the other things, all the social media, all the YouTube things you did. We did things that were generally helpful to the ecosystem, that were not focused on, I want to sell my app or I want to find more customers just for that, but by being generally more helpful, and hence a lot of doors opened. Is that the right viewpoint, or?
I think that's right on point. We took a lot of inspiration from outside the ecosystem with brand building, influencer marketing, content-led type of marketing as well. And I think it was, in a way, it's a more effective approach to grow. You talked about a crowded space and so on. Yes, we didn't have that many competitors when we started in terms of the solution, but in terms of the amount of marketplace partners and some that are super large and super established and so on, we're nowhere in that sense. So how do we make ourselves seen and heard in a crowded place where, you know, in the early days I would knock at solution partners' doors and, you know, majority would be like, who are you? What do you want? I have enough marketplace
getting 30,
partners
40
and apps.
approaches like that.
Yeah, exactly. So how do we make ourselves seen and heard? Well, fundamentally by making noise in the ecosystem. And that we did, I can say, in a sense, right?
I can definitely attest to that. That was fun. In terms of now that if you look back again, have you got some advice for people who would want to start now?
Yes, I would say the number one advice that I would give anyone in any industry and so on is, which I've kind of learned the hard way, because we were talking about those bumpy rides and so on, is don't get caught up in what everyone else is doing. Just build the right product, build what your customers need, and focus on that as much as possible, versus looking in others' garden and trying to strip. Because we're also accelerating. We were just announcing on Monday Coffee that that Atlassian announced that they reached the 3 billion in the marketplace of revenue, and that was like in just over a year or something like that. Where there's money, there's competition, right? Yeah. So it's only going to get more obvious the amount of new entries, the consolidations in the ecosystem, and so on. And if you pay too much attention to all of that, you get stuck. Because what decisions do you take? Oh, this happened, this consolidation happened, or this other vendor created a clone or a copy of my app, or this or that or that. If you get stuck looking in the other gardens, then you're not going to grow your own garden,
you're not
right?
working on your thing.
I think that's the most important thing, because again, there is an amazing ecosystem and community in the Atlassian space. There is growth still to be made, and a lot of, you know, potential for newcomers. It's definitely, from my perspective, harder than it was 10 years ago to grow and become established. But if you do a great job and you focus on your customers' needs and you look at figuring out ways to kind of, I would say, hack your way into notoriety, right? Then at that point, I would say that you're on the right track.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think it's much harder to, I mean, even 10 years ago, it wasn't all easy because you had to do a lot more to get there. Stuff that with Forge, etc.
And there's a lot of things that didn't exist.
But today, the much harder point is to actually stand out.
Yeah.
But I think we have many examples over the last year. Jexo, for example, that if you have a good product, you can still be absolutely successful.
I think that's a very good example, Jexo, and again, they've done a great job of building up a really good product and looking at the audience. And then all you need to know is a couple of channels and outreach mediums, I would say. Apply some outreach mediums in order to get your product seen. If it's good, it's gonna stick. And that's what it always comes down to, especially when you talk about SaaS. So what's your retention numbers, right? And if it's good, it's going to stick. So you don't have to put too much of an effort into getting customers, because customers stick and customers become your advocates if the product is exactly what they're looking for and they fall in love with it.
Okay, no, absolutely. Is there any other question I should have asked?
I mean, you can ask, I don't know if you had any other acquired founders. I don't know if you...
well, not done yet, but in the series there will be David Novoluk, who's been acquired. So actually that might be a good point. How do you, how is it coming to Appfire now after being sort of calling your own shots the whole time and being now part of a bigger company, having a boss, having a strategy, having more processes, organization, you name it. How do you feel that transition?
I mean, I would say, what I would say is, and this might... this might seem... What company is it there? Service Rocket, okay.
Yeah, Service Rocket, they are raffling their guitar.
Right.
Like every year.
Well, one thing that I would say is, if you're concerned about switching from being your own boss to having a boss, maybe you need to think twice whether acquisition is for you, right? Because at no point either Nikki and I have ever had a discussion amongst ourselves, oh, we're now going to be employees, everything changes and so on. Our focus has always been, are we working with the right team? Are we, do we feel like we're able to grow and have less of the negative sides of growing a business, like the stress of it and a bunch of other factors that might not be that positive and so on? And when we realize for our well-being and to be able to work with professionals and continue to grow and flourish our professional careers, we should join a bigger team. That was the mentality. It's never been, oh, I'm transitioning from being a boss to having a boss. No, I don't see it like that. And I think the fact that I don't see it like that helps with integration and transitioning and so on. So I think that's what I would say. And if you do have that identity crisis, maybe you don't realize that you're going to have it, and you do have it when you transition. What I would say is focus on the right things. Focus on people. Focus on relationships. Focus on just doing, building great things with your new team. Fundamentally, look at it like that. You're working with an extended team, and as long as you can continue to practice the things that you've been practicing as with your own company, I think you'd be just fine.
I think it's actually a good point that you made there, and it reminded me of a lot of conversations we had before actually the acquisition, and it was very rarely just about money or how much money can be made on the exit. It was much more what does it mean? What does it mean for the team? How do the apps fit? How do I fit into the potential acquirer? And those kind of things. And I think that is an important part for someone as well. If you just do it for the money, you then make sure you can exit and also leave afterwards. But don't just, sometimes it might even be better to take a little bit less money, but have a much better fit to the company you're joining. And a much more alignment with their vision. I think that can also eliminate a lot of that identity crisis and make the transition easier. And
that's has been our focus, as you know, with the acquisition options and so on, was just joining the right team and being able to continue to do awesome things with an extended team. So
it was a huge pleasure to be part of that journey, and thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it, Bill.
Thank you.